First, hello and greetings to each one of you from our family to you and yours. We hope that this finds you well, and we hope to see you soon as well. So, Pastor Todd asked me to share an update on the coronavirus recent findings, etc. And the more I thought about it, the longer you can talk, I guess. So we'll try not to go too long, but we'll do what we can. So first, where are we? Locally, we've done. It's been good. As of almost 9 o'clock Thursday evening, we have 14 positive cases locally, with at least 11 of those recovered. No deaths. So from that regard, it's, from a medical standpoint, been almost a non-event locally. So things locally have improved as far as testing as well. Initially, testing was roughly 7 to 10 days to get a test result back. The first one I did, I think, was actually more than 10 days. And now, if we do one, it's 24 to 48 hours to get a test back. So that's a significant improvement. So initially, when you get tested, you're quarantined automatically. So you stay home, you have no contact with anybody, so on and so forth, to be concerned. So to be quarantined for 10 days versus 1 day, there's certainly a difference there, which is fantastic, the improvement there. Okay. So we've also ramped up the number of tests. Lewis County, we're roughly 1,000 tests in, and if you think of a population of Lewis County of 25 to 27,000, that's a decent amount of the population that's been tested. And having 14 positive cases means just has not seemed to be much infection locally, which is fantastic as well. If in comparison, if we think about New York City, initially it was close to 50%, or 1 out of every 2 that were positive. So just using that number alone, it lets you know that there was just a lot of infection out there. Okay, so again, we're looking good locally. Treatments. There's still no definitive treatment. There are some supportive treatments, but if you think about a definitive treatment as something like, say, strep throat, you use penicillin or an antibiotic and it goes away. That's a definitive treatment, or a knockout drug, if you will. There are some treatments that are supportive, that can be helpful, but again, it's not definitive. It's not a cure necessarily just based off of that drug. Okay, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure if that's more hope or reality that will actually happen regarding a definitive knockout, if you will, drug. We're just not that good at viruses. So, again, that might be more hope than reality. Third, testing nationally. So, tests are getting faster and faster. So initially it was 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours to actually run a test. And now you can run a test in 5 minutes. There is a backlog of different testing systems that are sitting in front of the FDA that have not all been approved as of yet. So as those get rolled out, assuming that they are found to be quality tests, then we'll have even more tests available to us. Okay, so there's a couple ways that testing currently happens. The first and more widely used test, at least initially, was essentially a flu test, where they can isolate the virus and say, hey, you have the coronavirus, or no, you don't. And we use those all the time. I mean, we can test for a variety of viruses, and this is just an add-on to that, essentially. The second type is a blood test, and that's an antibody test. So there's 2 types of antibodies that these tests look at least the ones that I'm aware of. The first is an IgM antibody, and essentially what that is that there's an acute infection. So your body rapidly responds and makes what are called IgM antibodies. That's within the first 6 weeks following infection, usually. The second type is the longer lasting antibodies, where there's more of an immunity or more response to whatever the infection was, and those are called IgG antibodies. So what does this mean? These antibody tests can tell you if you have both a current infection or if you've been infected in the past. So essentially, you could have a more accurate understanding of how many people within a community, within a school, within whoever have had an infection. And it gives you an idea going forward about the percent of people that have been infected, and that'll maybe become a little bit more clear why that matters here in a couple minutes. Okay. So those are the types of tests that are out now. The other thing I'll say about testing is Lewis County Hospital is going to have their own test that they can run on site, which will be an improvement, as up to this point tests have been sent out somewhere else, and thus 7, 10, 8, days until things come back. Okay. Being on site, of course, will make it a more rapid result. So we're pleased with that. We don't know when that's actually going to be here, but I think it's en route, if you will, whatever that means. Okay, so nationally, politically, whatever, hopes are being pinned essentially on two different things. Okay, the first is an idea of herd immunity. Herd immunity is the idea that a certain percentage of the population has been infected, 70, 80, 90%, have been infected and therefore have those IgG antibodies and are able to resist being infected again. So essentially, if you have herd immunity, you might have, a few people here, a few people there that get infected, but you don't have a widespread outbreak like what we have currently. So it allows people to go back to, work, school, wherever, and function normally because they have some kind of immunity. Okay. So just a note on that, if there's 325 million people or so in the United States, if you're going to have 70-80% of people having been infected and therefore have antibodies, you're looking at 250 million plus people that have to be infected. Okay. Another way to achieve herd immunity is through vaccination, which is all the rage or all the talk these days is how quickly can we get a vaccination. Okay. So they're talking about, the word or that I've heard used is a miracle vaccination. Now, there have been miracle vaccinations. For example, polio would be one, in which hugely effective, and essentially wiped polio off the face of the earth as far as affecting us, which has been great. Okay. There's a couple things that about a vaccination with the coronavirus that would give me pause as far as the miracle vaccination being a possibility, at least in the short term. First, it takes time. It takes time and trials and all these things to make sure that a vaccination is first safe and effective, of course. Okay. So I would expect more, or I would think it's more of a likelihood that a vaccination would be more like the flu vaccine, meaning it can help lessen the disease severity, lessen the number of deaths, but it's not a miracle or a knockout vaccination in which nobody gets infected and nobody dies. I would expect that would be much more likely than the other one. Okay. So the two things I would say regarding what we're pinning our hopes to nationally is the keyword is hope there. One's going to take time. Well, actually, they're both going to take time. The second question I would raise to that, and this is more speculation than anything, is that there's an assumption that once you've had it, you're immune to it. so on and so forth. So we do know that viruses change over time. That's why, again, with the flu vaccination, why with all the billions and dollars do so many people get infected every year? Well, it changes every year. So if we get into that kind of situation, then it's, it'll be difficult. Okay, so I'll just stop there, I guess, regarding the vaccination piece. Okay. So I wanted to say this because it popped in my head. So hope placed in things outside of Christ is likely to be disappointed. So again, those things that we pin our hopes on, maybe it'll be great, but more likely it'll be less than perfect. Okay. So as sick of this as we all may be, it's likely not going to go away anytime soon. Okay, so questions you may have. What is reopening going to look like? Churches, schools, etc. The answer is I don't know. One thing I would say is we can expect more of the same at this point. How have we attempted to deal with it? Through control, through distancing, through isolation, etc. And the reason for that is it's all we got. And to be frank, it's not entirely all we got now, but we don't have a whole lot more than that. So that you can expect that to continue. And also with schools and other things, it's likely that the antibody testing is going to play a key role in however they decide to have us or students return or whatever organization, etc. that we're talking about. Okay. So I guess that's where we are currently. There's a lot of unknown, but hopefully I've answered your questions. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact me. I don't know that I'll have the answer, and it's likely actually that I won't, but I'll be glad to see if I can find out or give you an answer to the best of my knowledge. Okay. There's lastly just one last thing I wanted to share. And I talk to patients on a daily basis and so on and so forth, and you just kind of see them thrown to and fro and carried away with certain things. So it seems like conspiracy theories abound currently. It's China, it's Fauci, it's Trump, it's politicians, it's whoever. There's a variety of them out there. And I guess the takeaway that I've seen is that people are just listening to different voices than they normally listen to. That I'm not sure why, but I just wanted to highlight that and maybe a word of caution to us about how we interact with that and how much we join in with that, depending on what our thought process is. Second to that, and closely related to the idea of agenda, it seems like there's the idea of people must be doing it for personal gain, which may be, but may need to be careful about being so cynical or hard that people aren't doing it for the benefit of anybody else too. So those are two observations just from conversations that I've had that I wanted to pass on. So in our own conversations with people that we can maybe not contribute, but also to point to real hope that isn't disappointing, that always satisfies, that never fades. And we know it has a real definitive answer to our problem, which is death due to sin. So again, I hope everybody's doing well. Look forward to seeing each and every one of you soon. And if you have anything, I'd love to hear from you and do the best I can with it. You guys take care. Bye.